Well, top of the morning, Southern Oregon, and welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We've got a great one for you today. We're going to talk to my new best friend, who's also named Alice. She's the co-owner of Jim Septic Company. Alice Trejo Smith is going to be on the show today, talking to us about living in rural property, maintenance and care of a septic system. She's very technical, she's very knowledgeable, and she's pretty funny. So Alice Trejo Smith of Jim Septic will be joining us on the Real Estate Show today. In the meantime, let's check in with what's going on with our local counties, Jackson, Klamath, and Josephine. We've got some good news to report for the most part. Jackson County prices year over year have gone up 4% in the residential market. The average single family home costing $488,121 in Jackson County residential this week. The number of solds year over year in Jackson County are up 20%. We had 42 sales on SOMLS this week in Jackson County in the residential market. The number of listings in Jackson County year over year were neutral. So we had about 593 active listings on SOMLS this week in Jackson County residential market. Klamath County prices were also up 19% year over year. The average single family home in Klamath County this week costing $304,560. The number of solds year over year in Klamath County were up 150%. Mostly because last year was bad. But we had 15 closings on SOMLS in the residential market in Klamath County this week. The number of listings year over year were neutral. They didn't go up and they didn't go down in Klamath County. There were about 219 active listings on SOMLS this week, Klamath County residential market. Josephine County also had something to crow about. Prices year over year in Josephine County this week were up 9%. The average single family home costing $413,708 residential market this week in Josephine County. The number of solds year over year in Josephine County were down 42%. There were only 12 closings in the residential market on SOMLS in Josephine County this week, probably still inventory problems. Number of listings in Josephine County year over year were up 4% with 263 active listings in Josephine County on SOMLS this week. So yay, we've got some pretty good news for the most part. We have all three counties showing year over year price increases, folks. So again, this has to do with inventory. So I sound like a broken record. If you're a seller or a wannabe seller, the prices are up a little bit. They're up 4% in Jackson County year over year, 19% in Klamath County year over year, and 9% in Josephine County, all price increases. And but we still have a little bit of a inventory problem. So get your houses on the market, folks. And buyers, I wouldn't sit around too long. We don't know what the future is going to bring, but right now we're in a little bit of a price bump up. So get a hold of a local agent and see what's next in your real estate life. Let's say hi. Well, good morning, Alice from Jim Septic.
Good morning.
It's unusual to have two Alices, right?
Right, I know. You know what? The audience is in for a special treat because that's Alice.
Yeah,
We're
that's
very
right.
special people.
Right. I am so intrigued by the whole septic system idea, and I'm just so thrilled that you were able to come on the show today. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do.
So why don't we start by just talking a little bit about yourself and your company and how you and Jim got this all going.
Well, so Jim Septic Service has been around for 38 years.
No kidding.
Yeah, they've been around for a really long time. I am the third owner, and me and my husband acquired it about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. and because I went to work for Jim's running their office, and the old owners, they were ready to retire. So they said, well, you're basically running it. Well, what do you think about buying it? So we did. We jumped
Wow.
in. I had to convince my husband because he didn't know anything about the whole business, and we jumped in, and here we are. We didn't change much of anything. I kept it the same, same clientele, same techs that we have going out. But we love to educate our customers because there's a lot of myths out there, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts regarding septic. So whenever we can, we try to help customers clear blockages, help them. I mean, I actually talk them through it over the phone. If it's going to save them money, we love to do that.
Oh,
I don't,
that's wonderful.
yeah. So we're here to take care of all of our customers' needs. And yeah, we love helping people.
Well, and it's such an important service for sure.
Yeah.
So let's start with what a septic is and what it does, just for those listeners who,
Okay.
may have one and don't know.
Yeah. So more or less, they were designed for a lot of rural areas that weren't connected to the city sewer. And what it does is it's usually a concrete tank buried in the ground. There have been times where we've come across like the older versions that are either metal, or we have seen some that are like concrete, the blocks and rock.
Oh, really?
Those are very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like a lot of like wall block.
You
And
wouldn't think that that would be watertight.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. They were putting those in. They were putting those in, and it was like a wall block that was back in like the 50s. I think that's when they were doing these, was back then.
So were they connecting them with grout or cement or?
They were actually like plumbing, like a pipe to dump in there.
Okay.
Yeah. And the way the septic runs is you have an inlet and an outlet baffle. And what a baffle is, it's a 90-degree elbow that faces, like, points down into the tank on each side of the tank. So
Okay.
the one coming in is designed that way. That way the solids fall to the bottom, and then the water floats. So then when the water reaches a certain level, all the way up to the outlet baffle, it leaches into that baffle and goes to a drain field. So that water is called effluent water because it's not clean, obviously. And the drain fields are perforated pipes that are buried with a lot of sand and a lot of rock. And there is some soil as well. So it's designed that way, so that way when it goes from the tank there, it leaches slowly into the ground, and then eventually, the soil kind of takes out the bacteria. I don't think it takes all of it out fully because there's regulations. You can't have it by a well. You can't have it. There's certain areas where you can't have it near like a creek. Things like that. So if people are, using like proper products, if they are using enzymes and they take care of their systems, it'll last a lifetime. But there are a lot of myths out there for septics.
Yeah. So what do you consider a lifetime? Like our lifetime or the tank
I would,
lifetime?
I would say our lifetime, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they're maintaining it. I mean, if there's the only way it would get damaged is if there was like a big catastrophe where, something like big fell on it or something, you know, cracked it, like being like a big machinery, like a tractor, or because that's another thing. Drain fields and tanks, you should never drive over them. People don't really um, recognize that, and they wonder, why a certain area is super green. Well, because it's getting a lot of the effluent water for your drain field. And you never plant on a drain field.
Oh,
You never
really?
drive on a drain field. Yeah. Because remember, anything that has roots is going to look for that water source and start growing into those little pipes, the drain field pipes. and it'll compromise it and cause blockages. And if it blocks it, then the water comes back into the tank. Instead of flowing out, it'll return.
Gotcha.
So maintaining the sludge is a really important aspect of the having a septic system
Mm-hmm.
and regular pumpings. So depending on like the size of the tank and how many people are using it, that's the time frame that we usually give. For instance, 1,000-gallon tank, if you have 2 people using it, it would be every 5 years.
Wow, that's more often than I bet people realize.
Yeah, it
Wow.
definitely. There's also a lot of myths. People think putting yeast in their tank is gonna help the enzymes. But if you think about it, what does yeast do when you bake?
It
Makes things rise.
rises.
Yeah, so we can tell when people use the yeast because it's
Oh,
pretty gnarly.
I bet. I
Pretty
bet.
gnarly and foamy in there.
Foamy, like the froth on a beer.
Right. Yeah, exactly like that.
Wow, I hadn't heard that. We just have a handful of seconds left before we have to go to commercial break. So when people's tank backs up and you open it up and you see all that froth, you're thinking, or do they tell you? Do they tell you they put yeast in it?
Well, usually when they go to set it up, I usually ask if they're using an enzyme, and then if they say, "Well, I put yeast down there," and then I let them know what yeast does,
And
and
then you know what you're in for.
yeah.
We're talking with Jim Septic Company. This is Alice Trejo Smith. We have 2 Alice's today on the Real
Woo.
Estate Show. We do have to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. But, well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So before the break, we were talking about people putting things in their tank, thinking that they're doing something good for the tank. Can we go back to that yeast enzyme idea?
People think putting yeast in helps the bacteria, and I don't believe that it does because we haven't seen anything in there that supports that. All it does is just foam things up and make it a little harder for us to pump. What you want to use is you want to use an enzyme designed for the septic system. That way, it breaks down those solids. And people think putting that in it, they don't have to pump regularly, but that is not true.
Oh,
You'll have to
okay.
pump. What it does is it breaks things down and makes it easier. So us pumpers, when we go pump you out, everything comes out smoother.
Uh-huh.
Because the longer it sits in the tank, the harder it is to get out.
Oh, I didn't know that. I think people
Yeah.
think it's just in like suspended animation.
Yeah, it tends to kind of suction to the sides and walls and bottom. And when you use enzymes, it makes it super smooth. It sounds gross, but it just comes right out when the guys pump it, They can tell when they like start pumping a tank if people are using enzymes or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this is gonna sound kind of gross, but they compare it to like it looks like oatmeal.
Okay. Yeah,
Never
that's
gonna
what
want to
they're
eat oatmeal
hoping.
again.
That's what they're hoping. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, and you have a great crew. How many trucks or crews do you run?
So we have 2 trucks, but currently we're running 1. We've been a little bit in our slower season, but
Mm-hmm.
we're hoping that to pick up by spring and summer, we'll be running both.
Mm-hmm. So before the break, you mentioned that for 2 people living in a house with 1,000-gallon septic tank, would that be like a 2-bedroom?
2 to 3 bedroom.
Okay. But you were suggesting that they clean out and pump their septic every 5 years, which I think is fabulous. I am so in favor of that. What are some of the larger size tank and if you have a lot of people in your house?
So there is 1,500 gallon, and now there's 2 different types of 1,500s. There's an open, that's one big large tank, and
Mm-hmm.
that one gives you like a little bit more of a time frame than the 2-part. So what a 2-part is it has one side for the solids and then one side for the liquid, which is a dosing tank.
Huh.
So the one side is taking on the solids, you have to go by the 1,000-gallon time frame, even though it's labeled as a 1,500.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the 1,500 open, then that gives you a lot more room because it's one open 1,500-gallon tank, and the time frame is a little bit longer. So, for instance, the time frame for the 1,000-gallon, we have there's some people that have like 6 people or 7 people using it.
On a
Yeah,
1,000-gallon tank?
1,000 gallons. So they have to pump every year to year and a half. Don't go any more than, longer than that.
Wow, okay.
The more people that are using the system, then the time frame lessens.
Mhm. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, we give them a product list. Product lists is the do's and don'ts, things to put in there and things not to put in there. So believe it or not, there's a lot of products out there that, especially toilet paper, that says septic safe. And it is not.
Really? How so?
All those plush toilet papers,
Uh-huh.
they don't break down. So they just like they clog up and get caught up in either the pipe going in or right at that baffle. They
Oh,
ball up. And wipes, that's another one that people use. Those I tell them that it's just gonna mess up their system because not only could it clog going into the tank, but remember the water floats on the top of the tank. So it can float out when it floats on the water to the outlet side and clog that end.
wow. Wow. And they're not fully degradable
They're not at all.
which is
No.
how you and I met. But yeah, those wipes, I didn't realize that they're not, and this was not me or my tank, it was a customer. But anyway, yeah, the wipes are not fully degradable.
No,
So is it similar to an RV? Because RV has special rules for their tanks.
it is similar. Yes, it is definitely. Yeah, you still have to use. You want to use a toilet paper that is like a quick dissolve. When it hits water, it disintegrates, so that
Mm-hmm.
way you don't run the risk of getting blockages.
Mm-hmm. So
And
how do you find that in the store? What do you look for?
one of I think the one brand that we found that works the best, the one that I could find is the Scott's 1000. And also MD is a really good one as well.
Okay.
So all those plush brands like, well, I don't know if you want me to name brands,
Oh,
but
that's okay. Well,
yeah,
it's
so
great,
there's a lot of,
the good ones. Let's leave off but we
yeah,
get
so
we get it.
there's a lot of plush brands out there that just, they never break down. And as a matter of fact, when we go to pump, they will be on the top, layer that we call the biscuit layer. A
Do you?
biscuit
Is that
layer is
what you
all the
call
toilet
it?
paper that, yeah, it's never disintegrated
Wow.
and it hardens. It's gross. The guys
Oh, wow.
have to
Wow.
chisel through it just to
Really?
just to be able to pump the tank.
Dang, dang. Okay, folks, you heard it here first. Scott's 1000 or MD. And does the label say anything about being septic safe?
There are a lot that say septic safe, but yeah, they're not.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Okay.
Not sure what criteria they have to fall under to get that on the label. Maybe that it
Mhm.
flitches. Not sure.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of them that are not.
Well, and that's really interesting because what I hear you saying is these parts that don't dissolve actually collect and form a crust of some kind
Yeah,
on a system that's supposed to be fluid and I guess constantly in motion, at least somewhat.
right.
Wow.
And the that crust, it kind of sometimes blocks like solids from going down. So, yeah, it's not really a pleasant thing for my guys to have to clean out, but that's what we're into, the poop.
Well, you're definitely lifesavers, that's for sure. So what other ways of being kind to your septic system can you recommend to people?
I would say, one of the other things that we recommend is to stay away from like the pods, powdered soap, and anything with oxy. So what happens with those
Oh
things?
no, really?
Yeah.
So you
So
live in the country and your stuff gets really dirty, and now you would hurt your septic by using the pods and the oxy?
what happens with that is it creates this phosphate buildup in the pipes, in the tank, and also in your drain field. And it's a white, crusty buildup that builds up, builds up, builds up until it finally releases from like the walls of the pipes. And then before you know it, you're backed up. And
Because a chunk of it broke off?
yeah, and there's chunks that make it into the tank as well. You know,
Really?
people like rock sizes or boulder size, yeah, out of people's tanks, like tons of them. So if it's doing that in there, imagine your drain field. All
Wow.
the water's going to the drain field, remember?
So, and the pipes on the drain field, how big are those? Because they're not super big around, are they?
Those are about, I believe, a 4 inch in
Oh,
diameter.
okay. Well, that's bigger than I thought.
Yeah. And every drain field is not exactly the same size, I guess, just depending on how many lines they put in and the availability of land, to put the drain field. So some could be like 150 foot of drain field, some are larger, just depending on what they chose to put in at the time.
Okay. Well, and nowadays that's really regulated.
Yes.
Okay. So, what do you use instead for good laundry results when
I
you
would
live in the
say,
country? Especially, like, could you imagine having kidlets
yeah, oh yeah.
or
Any,
working people?
well, any liquid laundry detergent is good. So you want to stay with the liquid, not the pods or the powder. And then a liquid that does not have oxy in it. There's a lot of them that don't have oxy. So you have a lot of choices. I know it's super convenient with those pods. You just toss it in there. And not only in the laundry, but the dishwasher as well. No pods in there either.
So it's not only the soap itself, but
Mhm.
it's the little
The encasement.
encasement because it that doesn't dissolve completely. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I mean it dissolves in your laundry, but when it goes down, it like makes this, like I told you, this white chunky hard stuff like buildup that we have to
Uh-huh.
pull out of tanks. So it doesn't completely like disappear.
Wow. Well, there's certainly a lot more to it than I realized, and I've lived on septics most of my life.
And a lot of times we, like I said, we educate the customers over the phone. I ask them like a lot of key questions, and they probably think I'm a little crazy. Like, why does she want to know what toilet paper I use?
Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker at John L. Scott Real Estate here in Southern Oregon, and we're getting to interview Alice Trejo Smith of Jim's Septic, which is super, super interesting. I thought I knew a lot about septics, but it's great to get educated. Before we get back to our interview, just want to remind you that this episode will be repeated tomorrow morning, Sunday at 8 a.m. on this very same station, our new radio home, the ACE 1300 AM. So, Alice, we just have so much more ground to cover, no pun intended. um, and I'm a little distraught about the dishwasher pods and the washing machine pods. But do any of those products have septic safe labels, or do you just have to know ahead of time
I
yourself?
don't believe I've ever seen laundry detergent with the septic safe. I think I mostly have seen the toilet tissue
Mm-hmm.
septic safe.
Okay. And
Yeah,
laundry soap, probably not labeled either.
yeah, I don't believe I've seen it. I mean, to be honest with you, even those pods in city, I wouldn't really recommend it because it's going to do the same to your pipes.
Oh, of
Think about it.
course.
And on city, and
Okay.
I mean, they made them like so it's super convenient, but whatever that chemical is that they use to make those, it just creates a lot of buildup in there.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So liquid dishwasher soap or powder?
Liquid dishwasher soap.
Liquid. She's very specific, folks.
Yeah, liquid.
Okay. I wonder if those would be more economical too, now that we have such high prices on everything. I wonder if that'd be more affordable.
Right. Yeah, I
Want us
believe
to
so.
definitely more affordable than fixing your septic.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, enough of the joking around. Let's get back to the serious parts. So the damage done by the soaps.
Yeah, so the damage is, you get backing up, and then you'll have to call either us or a plumber, depending on, if it's, in your drain field side, your tank, or just the plumbing of the house. The majority of the time, it's usually going into the tank and in the tank. And, what we usually have to do is, well, we'll snake them out to get some of it out, and then we have them use, uh, the enzyme BioClean. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's a commercial grade product that we sell. It is, super, super good. It uses, you can use it in your fifth wheel, you can use it in your travel trailers, and
Oh, that's
also in your
cool.
septic. So you can use it as a monthly treatment, but
Okay.
you can also use it in every drain in your house. Put it, a little scoop in every drain, and let it sit overnight for 5 nights, and it'll get rid of all that phosphate buildup, the black gunk, hair in the P traps, all of that. If you
So
do
is
that,
that something people can do even in town?
yeah, they can do that. Yep. Um, we also, if we find a lot of phosphates, I mean, like a really huge amount, we will either bioshock the tank or bioshock the drain field with that same product. So that means putting probably a good 2 to 3 tubs of it, and they're 4-pound tubs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just to so it can eat away at all those phosphates, so it doesn't cause any further damage.
Wow, this is so interesting. We're talking to Alice Trejo Smith of Jim Septic today. Just a lot of eye openers.
Yeah,
So let's talk about drain fields because there's different kinds for different spaces. And let's just discuss kind of how they get built. I know you guys are not installers, but you get to see drain fields. And how do you check them? How do you check a drain field?
well, so normally if you're not having any kind of backing up from the drain field into the tank, if that's not an issue, then you don't want to disturb a drain field. The only time you ever want to uncover like portions of the drain field is if you're seeing water returning. That means there's some sort of a blockage there.
What does that look like? Water returning? What do you mean?
So once the guys will go, they'll go to pump the tank, and we've been seeing this a lot this year. Just so you know, oversaturation of the drain field has been happening this year because of all the rain we've been having.
Oh, gotcha.
So people were having to pump their tanks extra early because of the oversaturation, because the water would return from the drain field and fill up the tank, and then
Oh, okay.
they're backing up. So whenever we get a huge amount of rain like we did this year, that seems to be an issue, especially if customers are on a high water table on their
Uh-huh.
property. So you just have to pump a lot sooner. And then what we normally tell them is if once it dries all out, like spring, summer, if it continues, then we want to address it. So then we'll refer them to an installer to see what's
Well,
going on in there.
so I think that's an excellent idea, and I bet a lot of people don't think of that either. Are you saying that it's possible that heavy rain
Yeah.
water can damage your drain field
Not
permanently?
really, it's not damaging it, but if you think about it, like how much can the ground, actually
Right.
saturate, and so if you have other water coming in from the household, using
Hmm.
like laundry and showers and all that stuff, and
Relatives.
it's already oversaturated because all the rain and snow and everything we've been experiencing. Yeah, the water has to go somewhere, so it'll just return back because it can't, seep into the ground.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so they'll have to pump, more often. This year, we've seen that a lot
Hmm.
because of all the rain we've been having.
Okay. So each property is going to be different because the soil composition is different. The
Yes,
size of the drain field is different. But I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, well, during the rainy season, we have all these holidays. And a
Mhm.
lot of us have, everybody comes to Southern Oregon to visit because it's such a cool place. They should just move here, but that's a different show. So what do you recommend for a big wet season like we just had?
Usually it would be the extra pumping if they notice their tank like overfilling. And you'll see because
Can
it'll
they
start
check that
seeping.
themselves?
They can if they have access to, yeah, the lid. The lid, if it's a concrete lid, it is pretty heavy.
Yeah,
But a
those
lot of
are.
people, they install risers. That's another portion that we should talk about.
Okay. Well, we
What
have
a
time.
riser,
Let's talk about it.
yeah, so riser brings like that concrete tank that is buried, it brings it up to ground level. So we put increments on there and then a
Okay.
flat lid and it's at ground level. You just unscrew them, pop it off, and we pump through there. Um, they can check it, but a lot of times, if it happens to be at ground level or just maybe a few inches underground, you'll see they'll see water coming out of the where the lid is. It'll be
Okay.
puddling right there, and before you know it, you'll be backing up because it has no more room to go.
Well, and
So
that happens so often in the winter, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. Especially, yeah, this year has been a really wet winter.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely high amounts of rain we've had, so customers are having to pump a lot sooner. And another portion that people have is a sand filter. I don't know if you've ever heard of sand filter.
Yeah, yeah.
So they'll have still the drain field, but sometimes it's like a little bit smaller. But then it goes through the sand filter first, and then it goes to the drain field.
Uh-huh.
Sand filter is designed to filter out all of those little solid pieces that go through. It filters it out and then it sends it to the drain field.
Okay.
And then those need to be addressed probably about every few years. You have to jet those lines to get rid of, all the solids or any buildup that has built up in the sand filter so that way it flows properly.
So you have to clean them out.
Yeah, you have
I
to,
don't think people understand that.
yeah. And, once that it gets too built up, then you'll notice that the water will start going back into the tank.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of like different things, we check for whenever water's returning into the tank. We check for multiple things. Sometimes it's a bad baffle, sometimes it's a bad outlet line, and then other times it's their sand filter needs to be jetted, or we think that the drain field is compromised because we see big, huge trees. Remember, the roots are going to look for water source. And we've seen that as well. You don't ever want to plant anything by your drain field,
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot
especially.
of drain fields have grass or pasture.
Yeah, they do have that grass on top of it. That's fine because it's not deep rooted. We're talking about like trees and like deep rooted bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Even the blackberries, we've seen that quite
Mm-hmm.
often on top of a drain field. And you want to get rid of those as quick as possible.
Okay. Well, that's definitely good to know. We're talking to Alice Trejo Smith of Jim Septic, one of my new best friends. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, Guy Giles Mutual Mortgage, and our own local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, also known as RVAR. We appreciate your sponsorship so much. We'll be right back with Alice Trejo Smith. Welcome back, everybody, to the Real Estate Show. Alice Trejo Smith from Jim Septic is here with me today. And wow, I have learned so much. Thank you so much, Alice, the other Alice, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So we only have one segment left and we still have so much to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Well, we can talk about, let's see, the myth of you never have to pump. We've had customers that think you never have to pump, and then all of a sudden they're calling us and backing out. We had one not too long ago. They hadn't pumped for 20 years.
Wow.
Sludge was so thick, and it was slammed to the very top of the tank.
Wow.
It took my guys 2.5 hours to pump it out. And still, there was still some at the bottom that was just, hard to get out. So we had to put BioClean the very bottom. And then next time we go, we're going to try to get that out.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was pretty bad. So regular pumpings are a must. If you folks are not sure on the time frame for your septic pumpings, if you go to my website, jimsepticservice.com, we do have a little timetable on there according to the size and how many people are using the tank. It'll tell you how often to pump. If you ever have any questions, feel free to call us at our office. And our office phone number is 541-476-9726. We'll be happy to assist you. Even on
That's
weekends, I answer
great.
my phone.
That is great. Yeah, you guys are super available. Do you have any kind of subscription maintenance agreement? Like if I buy a real property and you come, because you also do inspections. That's the other thing
We
people
do.
can do. You can just pay you to do a pumping and an inspection.
Yes, we do realty inspections for real estate transactions, but we also do the reports, like if someone was adding an ADU, usually the DEQ requires, especially if it has a bathroom, they want to make sure it's able to take on another bathroom. And so they will require an inspection to make sure that the tank is in good condition.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
and
And then,
and what we do, apologies, I didn't mean
oh
to.
no, you go. It's your show. I'm
We
just excited.
So we do a callback system. We'll put people on a callback, and when your time is due, then I give you a phone call as well as an email, just to remind you that it's time for a pumping.
That's
So that's something
great.
that we offer to all of our customers.
Yeah, then people don't have to think about it.
Yeah, because I mean, it is out of sight, out of mind. So we totally understand that it's easy to forget. And that's why we would like to remind our customers. You don't
Yeah,
have to worry about it. It pops up on my calendar, and then I give you a call.
that's fantastic. So you mentioned ADUs, and we also have in Southern Oregon a lot of RV dump sites on people's property. So what does that look like? Are those separate systems or are they tied in?
A lot of times they are tied in, and what you have to do is you take an account of where it wants to, people want to place it. And usually, if it's gravity fed down to the tank, it's a lot better. You don't ever want the tank to be higher than where the RV is going to be, because then you need a pump to pump it up. But there have been instances where we have seen people have installed the RV dumps on the lid of a riser as well.
Oh,
You know,
really?
yeah, so then they just pop that off and then dump right in there. Yeah, so a lot of people do that, so when they're traveling and they come back home, they just dump into their septic.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, it is fascinating. What about bathrooms and shops?
We do encounter those a lot of times when we've seen shops. Some of them that are close to the septic are tied in, but there are a lot of them that have their own separate, like, little holding tank. It won't have a drain field because it's hardly used.
Oh,
So
okay.
it'll have a holding tank. And a holding tank, that means that, no drain field and everything is staying in there, even any kind of liquid or anything.
Which is
In the
kind of
bottom.
like an RV setup.
Yeah, it definitely
Gotcha.
is. Those come in different sizes as well.
Okay. And then would they put that kind of a tank on an ADU bathroom kitchen, or would that need a full system?
If DEQ allows it. So everything that I mentioned to you has to be all regulated by either the city planning as well as the Department of Environmental Quality.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get permits, and you have to,
Please, people get permits.
yes. So that way everything is legal. You don't have any issues. They have to come out and inspect to see where they're planning on putting it and if it's acceptable. Because there's
Mm-hmm.
different standards. Can't be by wells. It can't be by a creek. It has to be so many feet from a dwelling. So, and Yep, that's about it. I mean, we do offer like the maintenance, like I said, the sand filter maintenance. We do regular pumpings, we do businesses, we actually pump commercial buildings as well.
Oh, that's interesting. And you mentioned when I was in the middle of one of my septic crises that you had mobile home parks.
We do, yeah, we do multiple mobile home parks, and those we go according to how many people they have there, and they have to be pumped obviously more often because of the amount of people using it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so
And then did that maintenance go up in the mobile home parks this year because of the rain?
you know what? I didn't notice oversaturation in any of the ones we've done.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're
A lot
standing
of
on
them,
top of it, so
yeah, and a lot of them have really big drain fields because they're mobile homes.
gotcha.
So it's a big, huge area, and it was able to take on like the water capacity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So speaking of area sizes, that's how we met. Was a crisis at a client's house, and then it turned out it did not have the normal drain field. It had a cess system. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that because I thought that whole thing was very interesting.
So this is one of those cesspools, I believe, that was put in probably in the 60s, maybe early 70s. And what it is, instead of a drain field, it's a big pit that's made from rock, sand, and gravel, dirt. And it's designed that way so that way when the water goes in and it slowly dissipates into the ground. So I think that's what they were putting in back then instead of the drain fields.
Well, and it's a vertical drainage instead of a horizontal. And in
Right.
this particular case, they didn't have a lot of room. Hard to imagine being in the country and not having a lot of room.
We just encountered a property that had dry wells. I don't know if you ever heard of
No,
those.
what's that?
So a dry well is basically the same thing like a cesspool, but only it's metal. And there's 750-gallon metal, like a tank, that has holes all the way around it that slowly dissipates into the ground.
Wow.
So that was very interesting.
So do we have those in Southern Oregon?
This one I think they put this one back in the 70s. I haven't seen them.
But it was here in our area?
Yeah, it was here in our area.
Huh. And they call it a dry well. So you would think that had to do
Yep.
with like drinking water, not
Right.
not septic stuff. We're
But
doing a good job of being polite, aren't we, Alice?
right. I mean, it worked really efficiently. So, that was a real estate transaction, by the way. So we did
Uh-huh.
work, and it was super efficient at disintegrating the water down into the ground. So
Interesting. And that's a vertical system as well.
it is, yeah.
So with just a couple minutes left, I know you and I both want to talk about the weird stuff we find in people's systems. So we'll finish up with that. So let's talk about some of the weird things you've seen.
I seen children's toys.
Oh, probably gotten thrown down the toilet, huh?
Yeah, and a lot of feminine products that shouldn't be flushed, people, because just remember those are gonna cause blockages. Um, underclothes,
Oh, people's clothes?
like underwear.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know what happened, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. There was one tank we went to that I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the woodpeckers like to collect acorns. Are you aware of that?
Yeah,
Okay, so they were sticking them in this customer's the vent on the roof.
they
And
were.
yeah, so I mean it was doing it and doing I don't know how long, but eventually she was backed up. So that whole thing got filled, her pipes got filled, and half of her tank was full of acorns because we had to
Oh,
it
goodness.
was
So
and,
funny.
and acorns swell up when they're in moisture, so they were not that easy to get
Oh.
out.
Well, Alice, it's just been a delight. How about you give your website and phone number again?
Sure. Please give us a call at 541-476-9726, and we are at jimsepticservice.com. And then our email address is Jim's Septic Service, and then the numeral 1@gmail.com.
Well, thanks, Alice. You are my new best friend. That's
Thank
all we have
you.
time for, folks. Have a great weekend.